You bring home a new cast iron skillet. It is heavy. It feels substantial in your hands. You can feel the weight of it, the potential of it. You have heard the stories. You have heard that cast iron is supposed to be better than non-stick, that it lasts forever, that a single pan can be passed down from grandmother to granddaughter to great-granddaughter and still be perfect. That cast iron, once it is seasoned right, becomes non-stick. Actually non-stick. Not the kind of non-stick that starts failing after 6 months, but real non-stick. Permanent non-stick. So you bring it home. You are excited. You can imagine using this pan for decades. You can imagine passing it to your children someday. You season it according to the instructions that came with the box, or according to the instructions online, or according to the instructions your friend gave you, or according to what you saw in a video. And then you make your first meal in it. And it sticks. Eggs stick to the bottom like they have been glued there. You have to scrape them with a spatula. They do not slide. They do not move. They stick. Bacon sticks. It clings to the metal. When you try to move it, it tears. Pancakes stick. Everything you try to cook in it sticks to the metal like it has been welded there. You have to fight with it. You have to use force. You have to scrape and push and coax the food off the surface. And even then, little bits stick to the pan. Little bits of burnt egg, little bits of bacon, little bits of breakfast scattered across the surface. By the time you finish cooking breakfast, you are frustrated. You are angry. You have spent $30 or $40 on this thing, and it does not work. You are wondering, is this really better than non-stick? Because non-stick is called non-stick for a reason. You put food in it. The food does not stick. That is the whole point of non-stick. So you try again. You research. Maybe you re-season it. You put it in the oven at 350 degrees. You follow some YouTube video. You hope that this time it will be different. Maybe you add more oil to the pan when you cook. Maybe you try different cooking temperatures. Maybe you watch some more videos online about cast iron care. And it still sticks. And eventually, you give up. You put the cast iron skillet in the back of your cabinet. You do not throw it away, because it was too expensive to throw away. But you do not use it either. You tell yourself that cast iron is overrated. You tell yourself that the people who swear by cast iron are probably nostalgic or stubborn or both. You go back to your non-stick cookware. It is convenient. It works immediately. Nothing sticks. And you assume that the stories about cast iron lasting forever are just myths, old-fashioned ideas, nostalgic nonsense, marketing from people who want to sell you expensive pans. But here is the part that almost nobody knows. The cast iron is not broken. Your seasoning is not the problem. The problem is that you have been trained wrong. You have been trained by non-stick cookware. Your hands have learned how to cook on a surface that automatically releases food. Your brain has learned that cooking means using low heat and hoping nothing sticks. Cast iron is not non-stick. Cast iron is supposed to work like non-stick, but only if you understand how to season it, only if you understand how to use heat, only if you understand that the seasoning is a process that takes time and that there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. And most people do it the wrong way. I learned this on a farm in Ohio, at a farmhouse that has been in the same family for 5 generations, in a kitchen where cast iron is not a curiosity. It is not a decorative object. It is not something you hang on a wall to look nice. It is a tool, a working tool that has been used daily for over 100 years. The kitchen has cast iron everywhere, hanging on hooks, sitting on the stove, stacked in a cabinet, used and worn and loved. The woman who cooks in that kitchen is named Ruth. She is 82 years old. She has been cooking on cast iron since she was old enough to reach the stove. She has a collection of cast iron pans that includes some that belong to her grandmother, some that belong to her great-grandmother, some that she has inherited from relatives, some that she has seasoned herself over the course of 64 years of cooking, and nothing sticks to any of them. I asked her about this. I said, "How do you get cast iron to not stick?" Most people I know cannot figure it out. I have tried. I have researched online. I have watched videos. And I still cannot get mine to work. It sticks every single time. She looked at me like the question was strange. She was not being rude, but I could see it in her eyes. The question did not compute. The idea that cast iron would stick seemed foreign to her. Like asking how you get water to be wet. Like asking how you get salt to taste salty. She said, "You season it right. You use it right. You do not treat it like non-stick. That is it. That is the whole answer. You season it right. You use it right. You do not treat it like non-stick." And when she showed me what that meant, I understood. The cast iron in her kitchen was not like the cast iron most people have. It was different. It was darker. It was almost black. It had a kind of depth to it, a patina that came from decades of use. When she cooked on it, food moved around the pan like it was on a greased surface, like it was on actual non-stick. Even though she was using almost no oil, maybe a quarter teaspoon of butter, melted, that was it. And nothing stuck. The eggs slid around the pan. The bacon moved when she wanted it to move. Everything was easy. This is what proper cast iron seasoning looks like. This is what happens when someone has been caring for cast iron for 64 years. This is the goal. This is what you are trying to achieve. Now let me explain what most people get wrong, because the mistake is simple, and it is the same mistake that almost every modern person makes. Most people think that seasoning cast iron is something you do once. You buy a new cast iron skillet. You follow the seasoning instructions. You rub oil all over it. You put it in the oven at 350 degrees for an hour. You let it cool. And then you think, okay, it is seasoned now. I can use it. But that is not how seasoning works. Seasoning is not a one-time event. Seasoning is a process. It is a build-up. Each time you use the pan, you are adding a tiny layer of seasoning. Each time you cook on it, a microscopic amount of oil polymerizes onto the surface, and it accumulates, day after day, month after month, year after year. After a month of regular cooking, your cast iron is more seasoned than it was after that first oven seasoning. After a year, it is dramatically better. After 10 years, it is excellent. After 50 years, it is a treasure. But here is where people go wrong. Most people do that initial oven seasoning, and then they treat the cast iron like it is already done. They do not understand that the seasoning is an ongoing process, and more importantly, they do not understand how to accelerate that process, how to build the seasoning quickly, how to get to the point where the cast iron works the way it should. Ruth showed me. She took me to her stove. She pointed to a cast iron skillet that she said was one of her least seasoned pans. It had only been in regular use for maybe 20 years, and when she cooked bacon in it, the bacon moved around like it was on a non-stick surface. The bacon was already rendering its own fat. The fat was coating the pan. The bacon was not sticking. 20 years, she said, and it is just getting good. But wait, there is a way to get there faster. There is a way to understand exactly what is happening to the surface of the pan. And once you understand that, everything makes sense. Here is the science. And it is important that you understand this, because once you understand it, everything else makes sense. Everything falls into place. You stop trying random things and start doing the right thing. Cast iron is porous. It is not smooth like stainless steel. It is not glassy like glass. It has tiny little pits and valleys all over the surface. Microscopic topography. Under magnification, it looks like a landscape. Little hills and valleys, cracks and crevices. When you oil the pan and heat it, the oil fills those little valleys. It seeps into those cracks and crevices. And as the temperature rises, something happens. The oil does not just stay oil. It transforms. It chemically bonds to the metal. The heat causes the oil molecules to link together, to polymerize, to turn from a liquid into a solid. It becomes hard. It becomes a coating. It becomes like a plastic coating, like the finish on a painted car, like enamel on your teeth. It is no longer oil. It is seasoning. That coating is what prevents food from sticking. That coating is the whole point of seasoning cast iron. When you cook with fat or oil, you are adding a little bit more seasoning to the pan with every use. With every meal, you are laying down another microscopic layer. This is why cast iron gets better the more you use it. This is why an old cast iron pan that has been used for 50 years is truly non-stick in a way that a brand new one can never be, unless you do something special, unless you build the seasoning quickly and intentionally. The key is heat. This is the critical part that almost everyone misses. The oil has to get hot enough to polymerize, hot enough to change from a liquid into a solid. If the pan is not hot enough, the oil just sits there. It does not bond to the metal. It does not create a hard coating. It just creates a slick surface that gets wiped away when you wash the pan. Or worse, it turns into a sticky, gummy layer. And then people think cast iron is supposed to be sticky, and they think cast iron sticks. But the pan is not hot enough. That is the whole problem. The temperature is wrong. The oil is not polymerizing. You are not building the seasoning. You are just creating a mess. This is the secret that most people do not know. This is why Ruth's cast iron does not stick. Because she is using proper heat. She is letting the oil polymerize. She is building the seasoning with every single use. She understands that cooking on cast iron is not about cooking food. It is about improving the tool. It is about doing two things at once, making lunch and also making the pan better. Now let me tell you exactly how to do this, how to season cast iron the right way, how to build a seasoning that actually works, how to go from a sticky new pan to a truly non-stick surface in a reasonable amount of time, instead of waiting decades. The first step is to understand what oil to use. You need an oil with a high smoke point. This is critical. The smoke point is the temperature at which the oil starts to smoke and break down. Below the smoke point, the oil does not polymerize well. It does not harden into a proper coating. Above the smoke point, the oil breaks down and becomes sticky. It becomes gummy. It becomes exactly what people complain about when they say cast iron is sticky. For cast iron seasoning, you want oils with smoke points above 400 degrees. Grapeseed oil has a smoke point around 420 degrees. Avocado oil is about 450 degrees. Canola oil is around 400 degrees. Vegetable oil is also around 400 degrees. Peanut oil is about 450 degrees. These all work. These are all good choices. Olive oil does not work. It has a smoke point around 300 degrees. Coconut oil does not work. It is around 350 degrees. Butter does not work. It is around 300 degrees. These oils have lower smoke points. They break down at lower temperatures. And when they break down on cast iron, they make the seasoning sticky and gummy and uncomfortable. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They use the wrong oil. They use something they have in their kitchen, something convenient, and then they wonder why the seasoning never works, why it is always sticky and gummy and does not prevent sticking. Get the right oil. This is essential. The second step is to do an initial seasoning, a real seasoning, not just the kind where you follow the box instructions and hope it works, but a deep seasoning, the kind that builds a base layer that will support all the cooking you do in the future. Here is exactly how you do it. First, you clean your cast iron. You wash it thoroughly in hot water with soap. Yes, soap. The myth that you cannot use soap on cast iron is exactly that. A myth. An old wives' tale. A misconception. You can use soap. Soap does not damage seasoning. What damages seasoning is leaving food residue on the pan. What damages the pan is rust. And rust comes from moisture, not from soap. You wash it. You scrub the inside, the outside, the bottom, the handle, everywhere. You dry it thoroughly with a towel. Then you put it in a warm 200-degree oven for 10 minutes just to make sure all the moisture is gone. Moisture is the enemy. You want the pan to be completely dry. Then you take it out. You let it cool for just 1 minute. While it is still warm but not so hot that you cannot touch it, you apply a very thin coat of oil. And I mean thin, not much oil, just the tiniest amount. You take a paper towel, you dab it in your oil, and you coat the entire surface, inside and out, bottom, sides, handle, everywhere. And then you wipe off almost all of it. This is critical. You want the pan to look almost completely dry, but with just the faintest hint of oil sheen. If you use too much oil, it will polymerize unevenly. It will get sticky. It will puddle. It will create pools and thick spots that do not harden properly. You do not want that. Less oil is better, much less. Then you put the pan in a 500-degree oven. This is the hot part. This is the part that makes the difference. Most people do 350 degrees because that is what they read somewhere. But 350 is not hot enough. You need 500 degrees. You need the pan to be hot enough that the oil smokes slightly when it first goes in. That smoke is polymerization happening. That is the oil bonding to the metal. You need that. You leave the pan in the oven for 1 hour, a full hour. You let the heat do the work. Then you turn off the oven, and you leave the pan in there. You do not take it out. You let it cool down slowly, gradually, as the oven cools. This allows the polymerized oil to set properly, to cure, to harden completely. Once the pan is completely cool, you take it out. That is one layer of seasoning. Then you do the whole thing again. You clean the pan, you dry it, you apply a thin coat of oil. You wipe off almost all of it. You put it in the 500-degree oven for an hour. You let it cool. That is 2 layers. Then you do it again. 3 layers, then again. 4 layers, then one more time. 5 layers. This is the critical part that most people do not do. Most people do the oven seasoning one time. They follow the instructions on the box or from some website. They do it once and they think they are done. But 1 layer is not enough. The seasoning is too thin. It does not work. You need 5 rounds, 5 layers, 5 hours in the oven at 500 degrees, plus all the prep and cooling time. It is an investment. But it is an investment that pays for itself immediately. Because after 5 rounds, your cast iron will be different. It will work. It will be non-stick. After 5 rounds, your cast iron will have a dark matte finish. It will not be shiny anymore. It will not look like bare metal. It will look like it has a coating, because it does. You have built that coating layer by layer, and now, when you cook on it, something different happens. The seasoning is thick enough that it actually prevents food from sticking. The pan is hot enough that when you add oil or fat to cook with, it polymerizes with the existing seasoning. It adds another microscopic layer, and the pan keeps getting better. Now let me address something that is critical. The way you cook on cast iron is different from how you cook on non-stick. On non-stick, you use medium heat. You baby the food. You use non-stick cooking spray. You move things around a lot. You are gentle. On cast iron, you preheat the pan. You heat it on medium or medium-high. You let it sit there for a couple of minutes. You want it to be hot. You want to hear a little sizzle when the food hits the pan. Then you add your oil or fat. You let it heat just for a second until it is shimmering. And then you add your food. The food should sizzle when it hits the pan, not viciously, but noticeably. This is how you know the pan is hot enough for polymerization to happen. And now when you move the food around, it does not stick, it slides, because the heat is high enough that the oil is polymerizing as you cook. You are not just cooking the food, you are also seasoning the pan. You are building the coating that prevents sticking. This is the whole game. Understanding that cooking on cast iron is a process. Each meal is an opportunity to improve the seasoning. Each time you cook, you are not just feeding yourself, you are also improving the tool. You are making it better for the next meal. Ruth told me something that I have not forgotten. She said, cast iron rewards you. The more you use it, the better it gets. The more you care for it, the better it works. Most kitchen tools get worse the more you use them. The non-stick coating wears away. The handles crack. The metal warps. But cast iron gets better. It becomes more non-stick. It becomes more beautiful. It becomes a treasure. And that is the real difference. That is what people do not understand when they compare cast iron to non-stick. Non-stick is convenient for the first few months, and then it gets worse. The coating starts to wear. The sticking starts. Within 2 or 3 years, the non-stick cookware is going in the trash. Cast iron is inconvenient at first. You have to understand how to season it. You have to learn how to use heat. You have to do it right. But then it gets better. For decades. For generations. For 100 years. Now let me address the mistakes. The things that people do that ruin their cast iron or prevent it from working the way it should. The first mistake is not preheating. People take a cold cast iron pan, they put it on the stove, they turn on the heat, they add oil or butter, and they start cooking. But the pan is not hot enough yet. The oil does not polymerize, the food sticks. The solution is simple. Preheat the pan for 2 to 3 minutes before you start cooking. Let it get hot. Feel the heat radiating off the surface. When you add the oil or fat, it should shimmer immediately. The second mistake is using the wrong oil. People use olive oil or coconut oil or butter, and then they wonder why the seasoning is sticky. The seasoning never hardens. It stays gummy and unpleasant. Use an oil with a high smoke point. Canola oil, vegetable oil, grapeseed oil. These work. The others do not. The third mistake is using too much oil. People think more oil is better. They coat the pan with oil. They think they are protecting it. But too much oil polymerizes unevenly. It creates a sticky, gummy surface. It creates pools and puddles that do not harden. Less oil is better. A very thin coat. So thin that the pan looks almost dry, but with a hint of oil sheen. That is the right amount. The fourth mistake is scrubbing cast iron aggressively. People think that because it is cast iron, it can handle rough scrubbing. They use steel wool. They scrub hard, and they remove years of seasoning buildup. Be gentle with your cast iron. Use a soft sponge or a stiff brush. Scrub if you need to, but not aggressively. You are trying to preserve the seasoning, not remove it. The fifth mistake is washing cast iron in cold water and putting it away wet. Water is the enemy of seasoning. It causes rust. It corrodes the oil coating. Always wash cast iron in hot water. Always dry it completely. And if you are worried about rust, put it on a warm burner for a minute just to evaporate any remaining moisture. Now let me tell you what happens when you do this correctly. When you season your cast iron properly, when you use proper heat, when you cook on it with fat and oil. After 1 month of regular cooking, your cast iron is noticeably better than it was on day 1. After 3 months, it is becoming something special. Food slides around the pan. Nothing sticks unless you really mess up. After 6 months, your cast iron is genuinely non-stick, better than many non-stick pans, and it is getting better every single day. After 1 year, your cast iron is excellent. It is dark, it is smooth, it is beautiful. It is a pleasure to cook on, and from that point forward, it just keeps improving. Every meal makes it slightly better. Every time you use it, you are adding a microscopic layer of seasoning. Over 10 years, it becomes a treasure. Over 50 years, it becomes an heirloom. The cost comparison is remarkable. A quality cast iron skillet costs between $30 and $50. It lasts forever. It never needs replacing. You buy it once, and then you own it for life. A non-stick skillet costs $20 to $40, but it lasts 2 to 3 years. Then you throw it away, and you buy another one, and another one. In 50 years, you will have bought and discarded maybe 20 non-stick pans. You will have spent $400 to $800, and you will have sent 20 pans to a landfill. With one cast iron skillet, you spend $30 to $50 once, and you use it for 50 years. And then you pass it to your children, and they use it for 50 more years. That is not just a financial difference. That is a completely different relationship with the tools in your kitchen. One relationship is, use it until it breaks, throw it away, buy a new one. The other relationship is, learn how to take care of it, use it, improve it, pass it down. The old knowledge understood this without thinking about it. They did not have disposable cookware. They had cast iron. and they learned to take care of it, because taking care of it was the only way to have reliable cookware. And they understood something that modern people have forgotten, that the best tools are the ones that improve with age, the ones that get better the more you use them, the ones that reward care with loyalty, the ones that can be passed from one generation to the next. Ruth showed me her cast iron collection. She has maybe a dozen pans. Some are so old that the manufacturer has been out of business for 80 years. Some she seasoned herself. Some she inherited from her mother. Some she inherited from her grandmother. And every single one of them works perfectly. Every single one of them is seasoned so well that nothing sticks. Every single one of them is a working tool. And every single one of them will probably outlive her and be used by her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. That is the power of cast iron. That is the power of something that improves with care instead of degrading. That is the power of a tool that can be passed down, that becomes more valuable, not less valuable, as the years go by. So here is what I want to know. Do you have cast iron? Have you tried to use it and found that it sticks? Have you given up on it thinking that cast iron is not as good as non-stick? Now that you know the real secret, the proper heat, the proper seasoning, the proper oil, are you going to try again? Are you going to give it another chance? Comment below. Tell me about your cast iron experience. Tell me if you have cast iron that has been in your family for generations. Tell me if your grandmother or your mother used cast iron. Tell me if you remember the kitchen in which cast iron was a tool, not a curiosity. And if you have inherited cast iron from your family, or if someone has given you cast iron and told you, this is going to last you a lifetime, I want to hear that story. Some of this knowledge is still alive in the people who grew up using cast iron, and I would love to hear your memory of it. In the next video, I am going to show you another kitchen secret that most modern people have forgotten. Another way that old knowledge about food and cooking is different from what we have been taught. Another opportunity to learn something that will change how you work in your kitchen. Stay with me.